Well, welcome back. All right. Well, I thought in this episode, I might explain to you a little bit of why this podcast is called Flea Factory. Um, you see, it comes from a book. It comes from a book by a man named Charles Handy. And he wrote a book called The Elephant and the Flea. Now, I was introduced to this book a number of years ago now. I believe I was CEO of a large organization at the time. And my coach gave me a copy of this book. And he said, I think you should read it. And I don't know if you've ever had this moment, but when you read a book and you realize that you can't now unknow what you now know, you can't unsee what you've seen, you can't go back to kind of forgetting what it is that you'd read. And this book's, I think over in other episodes coming forward, I'll go through maybe the book in more detail, but I want to give you a bit of an overview of why I named, well, first my coaching business, Flea Factory, and now the podcast. Basically, Charles Handy talks about the world of work, and he talks about he believes that it's an ever-changing world. Now, you've got to understand that this book was written many decades ago. This was, I think, the early 80s he wrote this book. And he started to predict the way of working and living that at that point nobody really understood. And he talked about that we were living in worlds of elephants. So we're living in worlds of these really big organizations that kind of did big things, lots of moving parts. And you kind of gave your life to these elephants and they in turn looked after you. He tells a story early in the book of when he came straight out of school, he went and he worked for the Shell petroleum company. And he said at, I believe, 19 years of age, he walked in. They welcomed him to his first day of work and they said, here is your retirement package. And basically they had outlined how they were going to look after him for his whole career and his whole life and how they would look after him in retirement. And he commented that this isn't really how the world works anymore. Not for many of us. Anyway, the book continues to talk about the ever-changing world of work and that really many, many more people were going to become what he termed as fleas. He kind of fell over that analogy and it seemed to work. He also says in the book that you don't want to overextend the analogy, but basically he says what's going to happen is there's going to be a world of work where people do a variety of different things. They work predominantly maybe on their own. They use their skills and their knowledge and their know-how to work on multiple different projects in different ways and earn a living as they go along. Now, what you've got to understand about this is now we understand the world of work. There's a man in a van. Everyone sort of has their own plumbing business, or everybody's they're a carpenter, or they subcontract, or they freelance, or they're a graphic designer, or now, all of these things kind of now are something that we understand, but what you got to understand in the early 80s is this isn't the thing. If you're a plumber, you worked for a large organization and you did plumbing jobs within the organization. If you're a graphic designer, you worked in a graphic design department of a large company. And we've sort of entered the world where things are outsourced and we put people on contracts and things like that. And so he predicted this world of work. He got laughed out of the room, really, at the time. Everyone thought he was crazy. There was no way that was what was going to happen. And so for me, as I started to read this, really he was telling his story of how he became a flea and he stepped out of this world of organizational structure and really, I guess, selling his time to promote and grow a thing. So a company, a business, or an organization. And he said he entered a new world of work where he worked on projects and worked with people and he determined what contracts and what he could do, and he became a writer and he started to create and speak and things like that. And for me, it was the beginnings of me starting to think that maybe the way that I had thought about work my whole life was not the only way to think about work. So all of a sudden I started to think, well, what does that mean for me? Because I kind of somehow decided that I just kind of, that's what you did. You just went to work in the morning, you sold your time to somebody and you went home at the end of the day. And I started to bother me. And I realized, and there's another bunch of stories in there about why I finished up in my role of CEO. And maybe that's the next podcast where I talk about my my burnout process and how I hit the wall. But in the process of that, I realized that what I ultimately wanted to do was to understand how I could encourage others to live as fleas. So how can I encourage others to step into something new and maybe be courageous enough to go after the thing that they loved, they wanted to do, and how they could value add in the world? Ironically, what happened was I then went through a series of years of helping other people do that, and in many ways, quite successfully helping other people take big steps and make big decisions and do something new and be brave. But I'm realizing as I'm starting to do this podcast up until now, where I'm now trying to do this, that I have been hiding from doing it myself. And what ultimately I've been doing what I've always done, just in a different packet, if that makes any sense. So it's called Flea Factory because the plan for me is I want to grow a space where we can breed and encourage more people to live like this. We can breed and encourage people to be brave enough and courageous enough to just take the next steps to maybe live a life where their work and their passions and their responsibilities meet. And if maybe at that point where they meet, they might flourish and they may be the best for themselves personally. It may be the best for their families, maybe the best for their passions and their creativity, and it may be the best for, I guess, who they designed to be, how they were knitted together in the first place. And so the Flea Factory podcast is this idea that maybe we slowly build a community of people who are part of this group who see themselves living and working as fleas. So yeah, that's where Flea Factory comes from. That's what it means. I'm be keen to unpack the book a little bit more as we move forward. Maybe we'll take a chapter at a time and have a bit of a look at that at some point. Reflect on my journey through that as well. And definitely there'll be plenty more podcasts of me sharing my story of, I guess, successes and failures of trying to pursue this. But also there will be a podcast about my burnout and I was going to say what caused it, but what caused it? There's lots of things that probably caused it. But I'd love to continue to have a conversation with you and share with you that story and how I got there, what it was like in the middle of that valley, and some of the things that have happened moving forward as well. I think this story is not, I'm not going to say it's not unique because it's mine, so it is unique, but it's not unheard of for people, I think, to have journeyed through a burnout experience. I don't think it is unheard of for people wanting to try and work out what it means to work and live and do something they love and somehow earn a living out of it. The feedback I've had, even just from the initial quick little, 6-minute little intro, hello, spontaneous thing that I put up, has been lots of people have said to me, keep going. This is the conversation I want to have. This is the questions I'm asking myself. Like, I'd love to just keep doing it. Please keep doing it. So I guess that's confirmation, and I've got to listen to that, and I've got to pay attention. But I'm excited by talking to people. I sat down just last night and wrote a list of people off the literally top of my head that I wanted to talk to an interview for this podcast. There's over 50 names on the list already, like immediately. And I figure if that's one a week, that's a year. And I'm going to be asking everybody I interview if they know other people I should talk to. So I feel like this is a conversation that I can have with so many people, and I'm just keen to learn. I want to know what people are thinking and how they're making it work, or if they're not making it work. I don't know. But it's been a really interesting initial discussion with people as they've responded to me after listening to my first little podcast. So I'm really hoping we can just keep going in this direction and see what it kind of becomes. But I hope it's interesting for you. I guess you wouldn't be here if it wasn't. I'm already enjoying myself. I want to kind of keep doing them. So I'm going to keep pushing myself to keep going and pushing these out as frequently as I can. Thanks for joining me. All of the feeds and subscription services should now be working. So if you're at the podcast.co site that is linking you there, you'll be able to find me now in Spotify and Apple podcasts and Stitcher, I think, and a few others. They're all there on the site. But soon we'll hopefully be on more and more platforms as we go forward. But sort of the big ones are already up there ready to go. So if you hit subscribe, you'll be able to get these as soon as they get pushed and go up. Here we go. Step 2, record another one and send it out to you. And I will start working on step 3 and see what that looks like. All right. Thanks for joining me again. Talk to you soon. See ya.